For an entire generation, people have experienced Star Wars the only way it's been possible, on the TV screen. But if you've only seen it this way, you haven't seen it at all.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
We've been waiting for you.
The Force is strong here, even stronger than the coffee.
Welcome to Coffee with Kenobi. Here are your hosts, Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
Hello, this is Dan Z, and welcome to show number 27 of Coffee with Kenobi, a Star Wars podcast that analyzes our favorite saga in a whole new way. With me is my good friend and co-host, Corey Clubb.
Hey everybody, it's been an exciting month at Coffee with Kenobi. We feature our first conversation on Legends Library with Randy and Luke, discussing Heir to the Empire. Be sure to check out this great show, RSS feed. Each month, these guys discuss a classic book from the Legends line and encourage our listeners to read along with them and become part of the discussion. The next book they'll be discussing is Dark Forces Rising, the second book in the Thrawn trilogy. It's a great time to visit or revisit this classic series. We also want to congratulate Coffee with Kenobi and Cantina Cast blogger Becca Benjamin on being selected as Fangirl of the Day for her universe. Great job and well done. Be sure to check out the link on our show notes. Also check out our great friend Aaron Harris's guest appearance on Bantha Banter, a great Star Wars podcast hosted by one of our favorite people, Jeff McGee, of Coffee with Kenobi and Assembly of Geeks.
In today's show, we are happy to share a cup of coffee with Corey, Nabbill, and Dan of the WolfPack Podcast. The six-person team of Star Wars fans bring the latest news, interviews, and product reviews each and every week, and they join us to discuss our topic for show number 27, the Sith. We also have a Rhode Island Comic-Con report from Mike Audette, as well as updates on Star Wars Celebration, Star Wars comics, and the latest collectibles, and the new Star Wars The Force Awakens trailer. We also have the next offering of your Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio with Rob Wainfur, and introduce our topic for show number 28.
And now, let's see what's brewing in the Star Wars universe this week.
Oh, wait. This is interesting.
You found something.
I'm about to let everyone in on the secret.
Well, for our first news story, we kind of had to rearrange some things as the new teaser was released online. Originally, we had talked about it being released in theaters, in 30 theaters across the nation, Thanksgiving weekend, and they all of a sudden popped it up online. So Dan and I had our initial thoughts out there on a separate show we released earlier this week. So go ahead and check that out and let us know what you think.
Okay, so our next news story is Celebration news. We've got to see a little bit. We saw a wonderful promotional video, which it was basically incredible highlights from the last Celebration in Orlando. Wonderful, fantastic, and we got to see all the artists announced. There are a lot of wonderful artists listed there, which we'll talk about. But before we get to artists, I want to talk about the art itself, the poster art. When I saw this, I sent a link to it. I texted you and. Jeff and Scott from Assembly Geeks has reached out to Mike from Full of Sith, and Mike and Joel from Cantina Cast. Just sent all over to my Star Wars fans I talked to, and I sent out to Craig too. And there was just a bunch of people. I wanted to hear their reactions, and naturally, I wanted to hear your reaction first because you're my co-host, you're my good friend, and you are an artist of some excellence. And so, what'd you think, man?
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit. It's interesting because it's a piece of artwork.
You get a different reaction than I did.
Yeah,
I seem to be doing a lot of hand sweating lately. I just straight up excited, can't control myself.
You need to calm it down is what you need to do.
I guess.
No, it's all good fun. I mean, we're excited for Celebration. I think we talk about it every episode, I think.
Yeah.
So, I mean, to see something like this is definitely a lot of fun. Now, from an artist standpoint, I mean, everybody's going to have their different variations of what they want, what they don't want. For me, it was a little lacking. Han Solo is, he's dead big. Center. He's big on dead center, and I don't know. I just it felt like they're missing something. There's no Luke Skywalker in this.
Well,
we see a stormtrooper who's holding a gun with one hand, which seems odd. We got Leia off to the side. We've got Darth's giant helmet, which is iconic, of course, and a couple of starfighters and stuff flying around, and the Tatooine suns, and it is very
Starfighters. You sound like someone who's never watched Star Wars movie before.
Starfighters and laser swords, man. Like my wife. No, it's a digital composition of artwork, which is very 2014. It's kind of the big thing is to do digital artwork for movie posters nowadays, rather than a photo of an actor or something like that.
No more. You think the days of Drew Struzan are gone?
I don't think so. I think they're all kind of doing it in their own way. This is kind of the new kind of edge, if you will. I mean, I think they're kind of branching out a little bit to kind of get some different input, a different way. Maybe they're trying to get away from the usual stuff, and maybe we'll see more posters come along as we get nearer to the date. But I mean, it was just a little lacking, in my opinion. I think that there could have been a little bit more. It doesn't have enough motion, doesn't have enough action to it. It seems kind of stark.
One thing you probably noticed, it doesn't have anything to do with the prequels.
Mm-hmm.
It's fully A New Hope. I mean, Leia's pose, Han's pose, they're like old publicity stills.
Right.
The Vader, though, him looking out, that's very Return of the Jedi or the end of Empire. X-Wings, TIE Fighters. As far as does this contain any clues as to Episode 7? I mean, I'm sorry, The Force Awakens. I don't know. I have no clue. I don't think so.
Well, I think that's kind of the point, too.
Han and Leia are in it, but I love it, man. In fact, this is my background at school, my wallpaper. It's just cool. I mean, knowing we're going to go there is obviously a big part of it, but just anything, just actually seeing stuff. And again, I don't just... you can't just put stars on something and I'm instantly going to love it. I'm going to be critical. I'm going to be discerning. I'm going to have my preferences and my druthers, but I love the look of this and I hope that they sell it.
I'm sure they will. I think too, it seems they're going to have a lot of artists there. They posted a link to all the artists that are going to be there, all the talent, and there's some huge names and some great artists. And this, along with all the other ones, I'm excited to see everything. I think any artist who's expressing their fandom through artwork and digital artwork, painting, whatever it may be, I think it's exciting to see that kind of stuff. I'm excited to go and check it out in Anaheim. And I mean, all in all, I think it's a great piece. I'm a little critical, but that's just my opinion.
You do think it's a great piece now?
No, I think it is a great piece. I mean, it's not nothing. It's not. I don't know. It's just. I don't want to come down too hard on it because I mean it's somebody's piece of artwork, and I think everybody has the right to opinion. But I also think that everybody works very hard for their things too, and I'm sure that they're excited about this. Everybody's excited for this. I think, in my opinion, it's lacking in some areas, but that's the way it is.
Let me ask you this:
Sure.
If you were called and they asked you to design it, what would you do differently?
I think I would go a little more broader as far as the saga goes. And it seems to me like you want to encompass 3 movies plus. I mean, everybody's waiting to see something from The Force Awakens, the newest movie. And I think that's why my mind was expecting something like that.
Oh, okay.
And maybe it's just my mind is thinking we're constantly getting information from Lucasfilm about the new movie. So then this didn't have it. So I'm like, oh, hey, where's the new stuff? And maybe it's just me. Why can't it be something Rebels? Why can't it be something Clone Wars?
Okay.
So it just seems like it's. I don't want every character on there, but can we come up with something that's iconic enough to be like, oh, that encompasses everything in a broader sense, but also have that fandom input because it is a celebration of fans and fandom and Star Wars, and to me, it just seems like it's lacking those characteristics.
That's fair. Well, speaking of art, let's who are you most excited to see?
Let me put a list up here.
I sent you the link. So while you're looking at the list, I'll just tell you. I mean, Steve Anderson. We had to mention Steve. He's a great friend from Geeks Helping Geeks. He's done some beautiful pieces, and Becca helps him naming some of his work, and he's awesome. There are a lot of names on here that just you see them, and I recognize some of the names more than others. Terry Dotson's a comic book icon. Yes. Adam Hughes, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
He's a rock star. Alex Ross, he's
huge.
He's Alex Ross. I mean, that when I said that was the one that jumped out the most. But it surprises me, and all the other animators they're wonderful and talented, and it's a huge blessing to be included in this list. I do want to point out someone who's not on the list, Dave Dorman.
Yeah.
That made me sad. And we were fortunate enough, you and I, we went to the premiere of that. What was the name of that movie?
Oh,
The Force Within Us.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. Okay. I'll edit that part out.
Sure.
So Corey and I had the privilege of meeting Dave Dorman at the premiere of The Force Within Us in Chicago a couple of years ago. He was a great guy, showed us his work that he'd done for Celebration. He just took the time to speak with us. And he's a talented guy. I mean, he's doing Star Wars for a long time. And he's not included. He released a statement basically saying that he was disappointed. You know, he was sad. I mean, I'm just sort of paraphrasing. I don't know exactly what he said. Anybody can look it up if they want to. But that was too bad. I'm sure there's a good reason. And, and who knows, maybe he will end up being invited. I don't know. But it's got to be hard to make this list.
I think it is.
Pick the list, not to be selected, but to just be the one to say, hey, I have to eliminate someone.
I think it was a lot of names in the hat there, obviously, and the team of judges were some well-known names, I think, as far as making the choices, but it's a big event. I mean, they can't feature everybody. There's limited space, and they want to feature folks that are new and old, and so I think they're trying to do a broad spectrum of everybody, and it just seemed to be like, they had, certain names they wanted and certain names that just didn't make the cut, and it's hard to hear, I think, for some folks. I do want to mention real quickly that the piece of art we're talking about is from Craig Drake. I honestly have never heard of him myself, and congrats to him for getting this piece. I think we mentioned at the top there of the news segment that he got this piece, and I think that's huge. I think as far as an artist goes, and any of these folks that are on this list here that are going to be featuring their artwork at Star Wars Celebration, it's a huge accomplishment, I think, to be able to celebrate your art and display it there. So congrats to all the folks there, and we look forward to checking them out. It's always fun to be able to get folks that listen to the show to go out and do reporting for us. And we had the privilege of having Mike Audette go out to Comic-Con for us at Rhode Island Comic-Con. Yeah, and we got to talk to him and have a great little interview, kind of his thoughts and his experience there. So let's get to that.
Well, Corey, one of the great things, again, about Coffee with Kenobi, that one of the things that we love about doing this show is that we get to interact with a lot of different people, a lot of listeners, just people who are just awesome people and Star Wars fans who deserve to share their knowledge and their passion for Star Wars with everyone. And we have Mike Audette with us. Mike is a great proponent of Coffee with Kenobi. He's so fun to talk to on Twitter and online. And now we get the pleasure of speaking with him as he was our exclusive coverage man for Rhode Island Comic-Con. Mike, tell us all about it, and welcome to Coffee with Kenobi.
Hey, thanks, guys. Rhode Island Comic-Con was a great time. Me and my two other nerd friends, as we say, we were just checking out online, see if there was any, events like that coming up, because we're big into Star Wars, Marvel, comics, all that kind of stuff. So we were like, oh, Comic-Con's in Rhode Island in a couple months. So we, decided to buy tickets, and then, came up last week, a couple weekends ago. So we went down there. It was actually packed. The ticket seller was separate from the convention center, and they actually oversold the tickets for the event and the fire marshal had to come down.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Jeez.
They actually oversold like a couple hundred tickets. So they actually had to deny people entrance to the convention itself.
Which is amazing. And once you finally get in there, talk to us about who you spoke with and the different experiences you had interacting with Star Wars fans and celebrities.
Yeah. So I just telling Dan, I was able to talk to Matt Wood, who is the voice of General Grievous from the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. He's also working on the sound design for Star Wars Rebels. So I actually talked to him about the upcoming episodes, what he's working on as far as doing the sound for that. He loves working with the new cast of Star Wars Rebels. He loves how, they're keeping forward with the saga, So I was able to talk to Peter Mayhew for a quick second while I was getting a picture from him. And I don't know if you guys ever met him before.
No.
But his hands are ginormous. Like I shook his hands, and his hand just engulfed mine. It was crazy.
And when you meet the people like this, how would you describe their demeanor? Because, I mean, a lot of them have been doing the convention circuit for a while, and they have every reason to kind of be standoffish or what have you. But these guys are one of us. They embrace the fandom, and they're just good people.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Matt couldn't have been more gracious. Peter, it was a little early, so he might have been a little cranky, but a little while after I met him, we actually went to the Four Wookiees panel that was hosted by Kevin Leal. He's a Star Wars artist. And it was him, Brian Muir, who's a sculptor who played an extra Wookiee, and Michael Kingma, who played General Tarful.
Wow.
Yeah. And they all told their stories about what it was like filming Star Wars, what got them into acting, how they are being part of the Star Wars universe and the fandom. Peter had some great stories about what it's been like being on set with Harrison Ford and Carrie Fisher. Michael Kingma actually had a real funny story. He was just on set for like maybe a week to film his scenes. And one of the days, it was, they were a couple hours into filming, and he went up to George Lucas, and he's like, "So George, are we looking towards lunch soon or anything?" And George just gave him a look. And then Michael, after that, he walked away and he called his agent. He's like, just listen out for any calls coming my way. I'm not sure. I just talked to George, so we'll see what happens. So he wasn't sure if he was still going to be going forward with acting there. But
right, and you don't want to upset a Wookiee. We know that.
Yeah, he actually had obviously quite a different background getting into being in Star Wars, because he was a basketball player in Australia and wasn't getting anywhere professionally with his basketball career. So his agent was just looking for other things that he'd be able to do. And he saw that they needed extras for large individuals, which he was. So his agent signed him up for it, and the rest is history, I guess.
Wow.
About that, these guys have some of the most incredible stories that just, have walked with them for forever. And it's great to be able to go to these conventions and just listen to what they have to say. And I'm certain, you hung out with your buddies, and just what a good time it had to have been, just hanging out and make memories for yourself. So tell us a little bit about maybe some of the memories you guys made, or some of the experiences you guys had as fans.
Oh, yeah, definitely. The Rebel Legion and the 501st were there,
cool.
representing the 501st New England, and they had a replica of the trash compactor from A New Hope.
Wow.
And what happened is a picture online of us. Me and my friends jumped in it to take a picture, and there was a zombie stormtrooper that was in the back of it. And we just thought it was a display part of the set. And all of a sudden he started moving and grabbed one of my friends, and we all just turned and had shocked, screaming looks on our faces. And the person taking a picture got a picture of all of our reactions looking at him as he's attacking one of our friends. It was so funny.
That's awesome.
Yeah, you and I'm glad you brought that up, because during the convention, you were so awesome about sending a lot of pictures on the Coffee with Kenobi Twitter feed and sharing the excitement with everybody. And so we appreciate you bringing us along for the ride. It was just really, really cool.
Yeah, definitely. At any time, man. It was great. One of the other panels I went to was the Ray Park Q&A, and he was, gracious enough to answer one of my questions. I asked him what he thought about Sam Witwer's performance as Darth Maul in the Clone Wars, and
wow.
He loved it. He showed that to his kids, and his kids were like, "Is that you?" And he's like, "No, it was another guy, but he's pretty good, right?"
Oh my gosh, that's
cool.
pretty cool.
Nice question.
Yeah, when I was at Celebration 3, and just to be that close to Ray Park, the guy is incredibly ripped. Let's just be honest. But he's so nice. Yeah, he's such a nice guy.
Yeah, I actually met him at another smaller convention that's in Massachusetts last year, and I had got a signed picture from him. And yeah, he's great.
He is great, and as are you, by the way, for representing so well and just sharing your passion with everyone. And by the way, I was a big fan of your apparel at Rhode Island Comic-Con too.
Sporting
exactly. I knew I had to rep them, and I actually got a lot of compliments about the shirt.
That's pretty cool. We're always happy, of course, for people to spread the word, because it's people like you that are why this show is so much fun for us, because you have just really, really cool things to say, and your passion is something that we love and we admire. And there's really no better way to find out more about what makes Mike Audette tick than to ask you our 5 questions.
All right, let's go.
All right, let's do it.
Mike, your favorite Star Wars movie?
I'm going to go with the original. It's going to be A New Hope.
Nice.
It was the first one I saw back in 1997 when they re-released them for the 30th anniversary. My parents brought me and my brother, and from right when the credits rolled, I was locked in, and that's why I'm here today.
That's awesome. So to go along with that, who is your favorite character?
I'd have to say now it's probably Obi-Wan Kenobi, especially the way he was portrayed in the Clone Wars with James Arnold Taylor. I mean, he put in one of the greatest performances I've seen. Not just voice acting, but acting in general. I mean, it was incredible.
Yeah, you won't get much of an argument from us. I mean, he's not only is he a great guy, but yeah, everything that you said right on. What a performer.
Yeah, especially I finished reading Tarkin this weekend, and he's jumping up there as one of my favorite characters too.
Oh, cool.
He's probably right behind Obi-Wan. That book I was speechless after I finished.
Oh, it's great.
It's a great book. So your favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
I was thinking about this. I don't think I've ever heard anybody say this one, and it's Obi-Wan when he's talking to Luke. He goes, Mos Eisley Cantina, spaceport. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy.
That's right.
It's just, I was watching A New Hope one time, my winter break right before I was to go back to school for my spring semester of my senior year at school. And that line, and then I paused it and rewound it. And then I put in UMass Dartmouth. You'll never find a more wretched hive of scum and villainy. And just that whole essence just captured like my 4 years of school. And it just made me love that line.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, heck, the Cantina cast will be happy that you said that.
Yeah.
So if you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own?
I guess we could count pictures as collectibles, right? I got a autographed picture from Peter Mayhew that sits on my desk at work that I've gotten plenty of compliments about from coworkers. And then I also have a Darth Maul picture that I had autographed from Ray Park that I would love to get autographed also by Sam Witwer.
Oh, that would be cool.
That'd be great.
If I ever met Peter Serafinowicz, I'd try to get him to sign it too.
Heck
just
yeah.
get all 3 of them.
You may as well. That's the trifecta right there.
Yeah.
All right, so final question. What particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
I think it's probably just that there's nothing you can't do if you put your mind to it. Just from Yoda teaching Luke on Dagobah, do or do not, there is no try. It's just, if you want to do something, if you put everything you possibly have into it, who's stopping you from getting it done? That's
a very good point. And a very important, powerful thing about why Star Wars speaks to so many people, because there's just a lot there.
Yeah, it's timeless, it's endless. It can reach anybody.
That's right. You just have to be willing to listen, much like a Jedi.
Exactly, yes.
Very good. Well, We got to ask real quickly before we let you go, are you going to be in Celebration?
I actually just was talking to my parents earlier today, and I think we are going to take a vacation to Southern California next April.
Yeah.
I'm going to just end up going to the celebration myself, and it actually is right around a few days before my parents' anniversary, so they're going to use it sort of as an anniversary trip.
Very awesome.
Yeah,
I like how you plan that. That's awesome.
I know how to work them a little bit.
That's great.
I can't wait to hopefully meet you guys, meet everybody else.
Yeah.
We'd love to shake your hand. Yeah, I mean, you've been, like I said, you've been such a great ambassador for our show, and we appreciate all the hard work that you've done, and it just means a lot to us. So thank you so much.
No, it's my pleasure. Everything I do every day is Star Wars. I listen to so many podcasts. I go online. I mean, it's the lowly life of accountant when I can just listen to podcasts all day, but I love it.
No, I hear you, man.
Hey, speaking of getting online, it's a lot of folks out there like to interact and connect. Is there a way that folks can follow you on Twitter?
Oh, yeah. You guys can get me on Twitter. It's Mike_Audette. You can follow me on Instagram too, which is the same username as my Twitter, and it's mostly pictures of Star Wars.
Hey, that's always good.
We've heard of that.
General things like that, and I like to intermingle some hockey with Star Wars, but those are my two things. So if that's what everybody else likes, then hey,
Dave Filoni likes that.
That's right.
So, yeah.
Dave likes that, as you know.
Oh yeah, I'd love to bust his chops about the Penguins.
Well, Mike, again, thank you so much. We look forward to meeting you at Celebration, as well as to having a cup of coffee with you in the future on Coffee with Kenobi. So, Mike Audette, thank you so much, and have a great evening.
Thanks. Anytime. See you guys.
And now, your Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio.
Hi everybody, and welcome to another Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio, with me, Rob Wainfur, from thebeardedtrio.com, bringing you all the latest news on Steven Spielberg, John Williams, and George Lucas. And it's the big GL we start with, and the news that Strange Magic, a new animated film from Lucasfilm Limited, is coming to the big screens on January the 23rd, 2015. The story is written by George Lucas. He's also executive producer, and the movie will be released by Touchstone Pictures. So let me read a little of the press release on Strange Magic for you. Strange Magic is a new animated film from Lucasfilm Limited, will be released by Touchstone Pictures on January the 23rd, 2015. Strange Magic is a madcap fairy tale musical inspired by A Midsummer's Night Dream. Popular songs from the past 6 decades help tell the tale of a colourful cast of goblins, elves, fairies, and imps, and their hilarious misadventures sparked by the battle over a powerful potion. Lucasfilm Animation Singapore and Industrial Light and Magic, which created the CGI animation for 2011's Academy Award-winning film Rango, brings to life the fanciful forest turned upside down with world-class animation and visual effects. Now, if you've not seen Rango yet, make sure you do. It's on Netflix. The animation is incredible, and it's a fun movie too, and give you an idea of some of the animation that you can look forward to in Strange Magic. Now, the movie is directed by Gary Rydstrom. Now, Gary Rydstrom has a huge history of movie magic behind him and in front of him. He's won 7 Academy Awards, and his sound design in movies is legendary. Fans call him the Sound Master. Now, the fabulous dino sounds from Jurassic Park, that was Gary and his team. He's had a huge career in movies, and let me just give you a few of the movies he's been involved in, mostly as sound designer. Temple of Doom, Cocoon, Spaceballs, Willow, Ghostbusters 2, Always, Terminator 2, Jurassic Park, Mrs. Doubtfire, Toy Story, Jumanji, Saving Private Ryan, AI, The Phantom Menace, Super 8 Lincoln, Wreck-It Ralph, and of course the upcoming Force Awakens, to name just a few. Now, as a director, he is no stranger to animation. He's directed Pixar's 2006 Lifted, where a teenage alien tries to abduct a sleeping human. He received an Oscar nomination for that one. And sticking with Pixar, he also directed the short story Toon's Hawaiian Vacation. Now, Rydstrom was down to direct Pixar's Newt in 2008, but unfortunately that got cancelled. Now, stars in the movie will be Scotland's Alan Cumming. He was, you know him as Nightcrawler from X-Men 2, CBS's The Good Wife, Broadway, Cabaret, and Gutsy Smurf in the Smurf movies. And we also have Evan Rachel Wood from True Blood and the upcoming Westworld TV series. Now, I personally think this is going to be a gem and a perfect movie to watch in the new year to cheer up everyone from those holiday blues. One to watch, and we'll keep you updated on the website, thebeardedtrio.com, and on your Espresso Shot. Now, the official viral website for Masrani Global has launched. Here's a little background from the site and how it actually all fits into the development of Jurassic World. In 1997, Simon Masrani began talks to acquire International Genetic Technologies after the passing of Dr. John Hammond in order to reshape and restore the company to a level of satisfaction once sought by the former founder. By 1998, InGen was under the Masrani umbrella, and the years from 2002 to 2004 would help lead the Masrani company on their biggest adventure yet, the construction of Jurassic World on Isla Nublar. It's definitely worth checking out the site, and you can find out more about Jurassic World before the park officially opens June 12th, 2015 at masraniglobal.com. Now, sticking with Jurassic World and sticking with sites that have just opened, JurassicWorld.com has gone live. And if you head over there, you'll see not only the weather for the park, but more importantly, there is a countdown to the first teaser trailer for Jurassic World. Now, you may have already seen the teaser trailer, depending on when this podcast goes out, but the trailer will melt the web on the 27th of November. Now, 62-year-old Jurassic Park star Jeff Goldblum and Amelia Livingstone, 31, are now married. The marriage took place in LA, and Goldblum and Livingstone have been dating since 2011, and in July the question was asked for a hand in marriage. Bearded Trio would like to congratulate Jeff Goldblum and Amelia Livingstone on their marriage. Life always finds a way. Now, the awards just keep coming in for Industrial Light and Magic as the clever visual effects people have picked up some Hollywood awards. Now, the award for Best Visual Effects was received by ILM Visual Effects Supervisor Scott Farrer for his team's work on Transformers Age of Extinction. Also, David White and Elizabeth Yanni Giorgio accepted an award for their work on Guardians of the Galaxy, which also picked up the Blockbuster Award. Well, that's it for another Espresso Shot with the Bearded Trio. I hope you enjoyed it. Keep your ears to the ground for the upcoming Strange Magic from Lucasfilm in January. If you want to contact me, you can email me, rob@thebeardedtrio.com. Come and visit the site as well, thebeardedtrio.com, and we're also on Facebook and Twitter as well. So thanks for listening, and I'll now hand you back to the Coffee with Kenobi team. Goodbye.
Han Solo, Rebel Soldier, Lando Calrissian, and Bespin Guard, each sold separately. From Star Wars, The Empire Strikes Back Collection, new from Kenner.
Looking? Found someone you have, I would say, Your lightsabers will make a fine addition to my collection.
First item for collector's news here is something coming out of the toy bin. Coming from our brand new sponsors, the Big Bad Toy Store. They're featuring... They have the C-3PO 12-inch action figure coming from Sideshow Collectibles. They got... Sideshow always seems to have the greatest stuff.
They do.
It's 12 inches of pure gold majestic.
Literally. It's C-3PO, man. I love their 12-inch figures. They're incredibly authentic. The sculpting on them, Sideshow, like you said, they're when they make something and they put their hands on it, you know it's going to be a good quality item. You can find a link to it in our show notes. It's a great looking figure. I'm sort of tempted on this. I did just purchase the Imperial Probe droid, and hopefully we'll be getting that relatively soon. I already have the Indiana Jones version. Those are the only two I have so far. And even though C-3PO's kind of took sort of a backswing in the prequels, he came back. through Rebels and the Clone Wars, and he's the very first action figure I ever had. So just based on sentimentality alone, I'm kind of tempted to look a little bit more closely in this. It doesn't come out till November 2015, so if it's something you're interested in or even want to check out, please go to the link through our webpage. As Corey said, Big Bad Toy Store is our new sponsor. We're proud to have them and work with them. They're great people, great guys with amazing products. So every time you click on that link, you help out the show and make a purchase through Big Bad Toy Store and our webpage, and it helps us out so much, and we are very grateful.
I got to ask, Dan, the C-3PO looks great. It looks screen accurate, dead on, but he's not vintage. Is there? What's the?
Sure he is.
Well, I'm talking vintage figure.
Well, he's not. You mean he's not a Kenner?
Right. The Kenner vintage.
Yeah.
Does that change things for you at all?
No. I mean, Kenner already they already did those anyway. They already released the first wave with 3PO anyway, and I don't know if I would have gotten that one or not, even though it's the first figure I ever had, just because, I mean, at some point you have to consider room in your house. But I would make an exception for this because it literally is like a statue.
Yeah, it looks great, and I second your thoughts. Big Bad Toy Store. They have everything. I'm look on the site right now. They have everything that you want as far as toys and whatever your unique fandom is. Check them out.
Our second collector news story, also through Big Bad Toy Store, they have a post of a bunch of the new Gentle Giant offerings. We've got the Han Solo Hero Yavin mini bust. You've got the 12-inch Gentle Giant Kenner Jumbo figures Ugnaught, and you've got the Rebels Stormtrooper maquette. So, right off the bat, I am not a mini bust guy. I know that Mike is from the Cantina cast. I think Joe likes him too. It's a fine enough looking figure. Did you check it out?
I did. The Ugnaught's got a purse.
It's what it's like in the movie, man. It's not a purse.
Okay, it's a man purse.
And not that there's anything wrong with that. God bless him.
Sure, yeah, a bib. He's got like a bib or like a. It's like a.
The detailing on that thing is pretty cool.
It would go right.
It really like the cloth and like the detail on that case that he's carrying around. It's really neat.
Are you picking this one up?
I don't know. I mean, it's an Ugnaught. It's not like when I think of if I think of 100 characters I like from Star Wars, then
it's not your top 100,
102 or something.
Oh, okay, that's where he lands.
But that thing is maybe not 102. That's maybe a show for another time.
Maybe.
What do you think of the mini bust?
The mini bust, I've seen him around.
He's very arms foldy.
The Han Solo, yes.
Yeah.
He's very arms foldy, very. He looks like he's not taking any crap. He doesn't like. It's just like that's the way Han Solo is. The mini bust itself, I think. I wish I had money to collect them because they're kind of the
you
right.
You do like it.
I do like it.
More than the figures, more than the Jumbo Kenner figures.
Yes.
Okay, that's good. We balance each other out.
We do. You don't like it? You don't like it?
I'm just ambivalent. I mean, it's cool. If someone showed it to me, I would enjoy it, and I would look at it, and I would smile, and I would be happy.
Would you?
But I don't really care about getting them.
Would you take the Han Solo over the Ugnaught?
No, I'd rather have the Ugnaught. I like it. When I first was like an Ugnaught, okay, it had to happen eventually. But when I look at it, and click on the picture. I mean, he's awesome. Look at him; his little pig nose and the cloth that they've replicated. And
sounds like he's moving up your ladder of favorite figures. Steadily growing.
Look at his figure, though. He's got it burgeoning. There you go.
He is burgeoning. Yes. There you go.
No, it's neat. I mean, the thing weighs the whole shipping. The Ugnaught is 2.8 pounds.
He's wearing an apron,
it's light.
too.
No, that's what I mean. The cloth looks cool. I mean, the detailing on the sculpt of the face, I think, is really impressive. Did you click on the picture?
Yeah.
I was going
to say, Gentle Giant holds back no restraint on details. I got to put out there. I mean, much as we jest here as far as joking around, they've got some dead on features. And we're talking about features and stuff. The Rebels Stormtrooper, we talked about that a little bit. The maquette of that, it definitely has that Rebels look.
Well,
the high cheekbones.
The Stormtroopers are you talking about?
Yes.
I love maquettes. I have quite a few of them. And I have a lot from the original trilogy. They were like in the animated style. I know you've seen them. But This is the first one in the Rebels line. And I don't know who else. It says Gentle Giant is proud to bring you the first new character from the highly anticipated new animated series Star Wars Rebels, Imperial Stormtrooper, crafted by the master artisans at Gentle Giant. And I like what they say, though their blasters are far from accurate, it is nearly impossible to escape their numbers. And when you click on, at first blush, and you look at it like, yeah, it's that McQuarrie style, it doesn't quite look like the Stormtrooper from New Hope. But I looked on the picture that Big Bad Toy Store has now, just pending licensor approval. It's neat.
Yeah, he looks cool.
Cool.
He's kind of got like a dirty, rough, beat up look to him, kind of scratched on his armor and stuff.
Yeah,
he definitely has that Rebels. I could call it the high cheekbone look.
Yeah, with the bigger, what are they, tubes on the side of their face?
That's their breathing apparatus.
So let us know what you think, and of course, as we plugged rather shamelessly, go to the link on our main page at Big Bad Toy Store and do some Christmas shopping and for yourself, for your family, for your loved ones. It helps out this show, and you get to see some great products.
This is Dan Curto,
Nabbill Carrillo,
and Corey Van Dyke of the WolfPack Podcast.
And you are listening to Coffee with Kenobi with Dan Z and Corey Clubb.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
Luke, you're going to find that many of the truths we cling to depend greatly on our own point of view.
I must be allowed to speak.
You've taken your first step into a larger world.
Our topic for show number 27 is the Sith. What about the philosophy of the Sith? And why do only Sith deal in absolutes? How about the Sith view of the afterlife? And why aren't there Sith Force ghosts? Is the rule of two a good idea? Why or why not? On today's show, we talk with Dan Curto, Nabbill Carrillo, and Corey Wolf of the WolfPack Podcast. Each week, this 6-person team features the latest Star Wars news, interviews, and product reviews, and have a lot of fun along the way. We are thrilled to talk with these gentlemen as we are big fans of the WolfPack Podcast. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hey, Dan, how you doing?
Great, Corey. And Dan and Nabbill, thanks again, all of you, for coming on. We've been having a lot of fun with this before we actually started. But this is the first time that Dan and Corey have talked to Dan and Corey without being sent to like a psychiatrist. So this is pretty cool.
We have to say that, after tonight, we're going to be switching hosts. So next time when you listen to the show, we'll have a different Dan and Corey. But we're just going to throw you for why not?
It only makes sense.
That's right.
It only makes sense. So, guys, the WolfPack has made an incredible splash in the world of Star Wars and podcasting. Can you tell us how you all came together and how you started the WolfPack Podcast?
It's all Corey's fault.
I'm assuming you guys are meeting.
It's all Corey.
So pretty much back in April of 2013. Actually, prior to that, I had met Nabbill and Logan, who is not presently here, but Logan's also part of our group. And, we met at Celebration, and it was very, very brief. I didn't talk with Nabbill for, more than probably 5 minutes. So,
we talked for 2 occasions.
Yeah, 2 different occasions. And then we met back at Star Wars Weekends in 2013. And that's kind of where, we started becoming friends, became friends with Logan, and it kind of started from there. And then I think we really decided to do a podcast in the summer. It was the summer. It was August of last year. And originally, it's kind of funny the way it happened. Nabbill and Logan were not part of it. It was myself, somebody else named Marco, and Chris, who are not here either. We have 6 guys in our group. It's crazy.
It's like a pack.
Exactly. You got it. That's right.
And we came together and we wanted to do a Star Wars podcast. And what better way than the WolfPack Podcast? Because we're all diehard fans of the Clone Wars, and we really love Dave Filoni's work.
One of the things I like to say is that there's different eras of Star Wars fandom, and between the original trilogy, the classic trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the Clone Wars, and because of the different ages of our group, we've got representatives from each of those eras. So I'm the old fart of the group. I grew up with the originals, and we've got some guys who grew up with the prequels as their Star Wars, and now Corey is. I think you're the youngest member, right, Corey?
Corey is youngest.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, you grew up more or less with the Clone Wars era, and now we're all together talking Star Wars of all eras in this new era of Star Wars with the Rebels series and the upcoming sequel trilogy, which is kind of crazy. Whoever thought that would happen?
It's phenomenal. We have. There's just the two of us, but Corey and I have a 10-year age difference between us. So I caught on. I think Dan, you and I are probably similar. Besides having the same name, we're in similar age brackets. I'm quite sure. And Corey. I grew up with the original trilogy in the theaters, and Corey caught did you see any of them in the theater originally, Corey?
No, not originally. No,
yeah,
not originally.
Because you saw them, I know, on tape and
on TV,
became obviously
tape,
enamored. And you thought one day I'm going to have a coffee podcast about Star Wars.
Someday, yes.
Yeah, and you guys do something really cool. You put a lot of your stuff on YouTube. How did that come about?
Well, I think when we initially started it, we wanted to kind of do something that was completely different. Mm-hmm. And I mean, we love audio only as well. We love both, but we wanted to do something where it's almost like a video podcast. Well, that's exactly what it is. Nabbill and Logan and Dan, when we brought them on board in October, we were originally doing October of last year. We were originally doing just audio only. When we got them in, we all kind of just adjusted to doing videos, and I don't know, it kind of just started like that. And it's actually a pretty fun way to do podcasts, especially because you can show items and you can really show everything behind you, or if you have something you want to grab and show real quick.
And the editing that's got to be a little bit of a challenge.
There is actually no
editing.
There is no editing,
which is insane. The only time we ever edit stuff is with interviews, or if we do audio only, that's the only time we edit. But Google does not allow you to edit the podcasts that you do there, so it's kind of difficult. Sometimes, like if you'll see, sometimes before we actually start the show, there'll be a joke that spirals out of nowhere. So when I'm trying to do the intro, one of us will laugh. It's you cannot edit. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah. I remember the first time you had me on and we were doing the video. I mean, now I've been doing podcasts for years, but it was always audio. And this was a very new thing for me, but I was kind of fascinated by it because it was completely different from what I'd been doing for so long. And now it's funny. I bounce back and forth depending what show I'm doing, or if I'm making an appearance like tonight, for example. So it's kind of fun to have just like a different, thing in my arsenal.
A variety.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
Which is, of course, the spice of life.
Yep.
Very good. Right. Well, speaking of spice, what we're talking about tonight, our topic for show number 27, and again, it's such a pleasure to have you guys on. So far it's been a lot of fun, and I'm really interested in knowing how you all feel about the Sith. In our last episode, we talked a lot about the Jedi Order, their philosophies, their mantras, what makes them tick. So it only seems natural to keep the balance going, since Darth Vader was so kind as to restore balance to the Force for us, that we keep our balance going. So how do you guys, and we'll just start with you, Corey Wolf, tell us how you interpret the philosophy of the Sith. And for the purposes of this discussion, let's try to keep it canonical if we can. I mean, I sound like a teacher, don't I? Well, it's probably because I am.
What do I think of the Sith? Well, I have a shelf dedicated to the Sith, so I think I really do like them. I'm a big fan of the Sith, and canon-wise, let's see.
Is this not EU, but not legend?
Correct.
Okay, gotcha.
Correct.
So we got Maul, Dooku, and Vader, and of course Palpatine. Well, I think the really cool thing, the dynamic of the Sith, throughout the saga, is that each character is so different from the previous one. Mm-hmm. You got Darth Maul, who's completely different from Count Dooku, and then you got Anakin, obviously Vader, who's completely different from Dooku, and then obviously Palpatine helming all this. I think that's one of the really cool things about the Sith in the movies, is that, like I said, they're all different, and they all different, have different powers. And in the Clone Wars, of course, you got Savage Opress, who isn't really a Sith, but is, I guess he is a Sith, but not, in Sidious's eyes, the rule of two, since be more than. Or is that canon? Is that still
That's
canon?
not canon anymore. That's
canon.
what I asked. That was the rule of Bane.
That's right.
Yes.
Which we do know, of course, that Bane is there because we got to see him in the Lost missions. But yeah, some of that has been unexplored, and they may very well resuscitate that. So it'll be interesting to see. But Dan, what about you? When you think about the philosophy of the Sith, at least for my money, the Sith are a very unique group because there are only two of them. They seek to distance themselves from everyone while simultaneously taking over everyone. It's very biblical in the sense that evil wants to isolate and keep you away and confuse you, and that's what the Sith do. What is it about the Sith that is so interesting to you?
Well, the bad guys are always more fun, aren't they?
Yes.
I mean, one of my favorite characters, and a lot of us on the Wolfpack kind of have this same thought too. I love Darth Maul.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't really do a whole lot, but I like the look of him. I like the idea behind him. And there is one thing I kind of wanted to add. I don't remember which show I talked about this, but I don't feel Dooku was a true Sith.
No.
A lot of people said, well, why didn't Dooku have Sith eyes? And that's because he was so skilled at being a duelist, at being a master manipulator, that he didn't necessarily need the Sith powers. But he
never got really angry either.
Right. No. He fought. He had complete control of all his lightsaber duels, and he was obviously very, very skilled at that. And he tapped into the Force on his own already, even without being influenced by the Sith. So I don't know that he was necessarily one of the two Sith Lords in the classic, there can be only two type of thing. Which is why it was so easy to have all these little disciples running around us. If you count Saj Ventress, Savage, and then eventually Darth Maul returned. And that's the point I was going to get to, is Darth Maul wasn't dead.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't know that for a long time. But,
and neither did the Emperor.
Exactly.
Right. So those are if you count Maul as one of the two back in episode 1, then clearly he's been around all this time. We still don't really know what happened to him.
Mm-hmm.
So there have been a lot of powerful dark side users, if you will, but I don't believe that Dooku was actually a true, gave himself over to the Sith the way that we saw Anakin in episode 3.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't know. I think he just carries himself differently, and he's pretty much the only one that is human and could conceivably get away with going out on a date with someone and then not being scared to look at him. And he's a Sith Lord. So that can kind of be intriguing as well. And Nabbill, what about you? What is it about the Sith that and their philosophy that intrigues you?
Well, for me, I have to say that I really like how there's, in my eyes, there's more mystery to them than there is with the Jedi. I mean, the Jedi, there's also mystery. We don't know everything about either one of the, the Jedi or the Sith. But for me, I feel like the Sith have so many deep secrets, and I feel like Palpatine has been like the only one that's actually gotten so much access to information about the Sith. You know what I mean? I mean, not tapping to the EU, but just the way he planned out everything from episode 1 to episode 6. I mean, no one's ever done that before. No villain in any kind of movie or trilogy or, book novel or anything has ever been able to pull off something so hardcore evil like he did. And to me, that's like, the godfather of evil right there,
The devil.
Yeah, pretty much. And the way he manipulated Anakin in such a way where you can literally understand why Anakin did what he did, even though we clearly know it's wrong. And for me, I think that's the most intriguing part, is how intelligent and skillful the Sith are, even though sometimes they can get carried away with their hatred or their greed, and that's what leads to their downfall. But like the guys on the podcast know, Marco and I, Marco's our other podcast member, we're huge fans of Darth Maul, and like Curta was saying, the look of Darth Maul is just awesome looking, and to me, he seemed like the most evil Sith out of all the Siths throughout the movies. And he was so menacing, and he was also very intelligent. I really like how in the Clone Wars they explored that a lot, and we got to see a lot of his training and how much he did know about Palpatine's plans and all that stuff. And just, they're so powerful. I love them. I love them for every reason. And I love their Sith code.
Yeah, I think that's interesting too. There's a lot admire about them. And I don't know if admire is the right word. I don't know if we want to admire someone who's a murderer, but you know what I mean. There's something so fascinating about them, and like you said, Curto, the bad guys are usually the most interesting. So it's a lot of fun. But then we talk about Obi-Wan's line where he says, "Only a Sith deals in absolutes," which of course in itself is an absolute. People have talked about that frequently. But why do Sith only deal in absolutes? And is that something that the Sith would attest to? Or is this just something that the Jedi have come up with to try to figure out more about what makes them tick?
That's a good point. I think that as far as the Sith go, since they just really care about themselves and finding power, I think Obi-Wan was directly talking about the Sith, but that's a good point.
I think that, with the Sith, their motivating factor is very selfish.
Exactly.
So they're either going after, gathering power for themselves, or they're trying to dominate someone, or they're trying, Vader said this countless times, we're going to rule the galaxy. Mm-hmm. And it's not because he wanted to share that with anybody who's for the greater good. He wanted the power for himself. And in episode 3, of course, we see, he was trying to figure out a way to save Padme, but that was because he did not want her to die like his mother did. So it's very not childish, but it's
selfish.
Yes, very, very selfish. And it could be for good reasons. Whereas a Jedi, they would look at it and say, you know what, I'm going to help this person because that person needs my help. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to do it for myself. I'm going to do it because I'm out for, the greater good. And necessarily, I don't care about having power for myself.
Well, and I think the other thing with Sidious, like you were talking about earlier, Nabbill, is the whole point of, just to show how selfish they really are. I mean, Sidious literally took this boy from, 10 years old all the way up to, like 20 years old or 25, however old he was, and totally, messed with this poor kid who, already had a messed up life as a slave, and then having his mother die, and then, now having to deal with the Clone Wars, and he's getting just worn out with it, and Ahsoka leaving, and, he really is not in the best, mental position. And Sidious, as selfish as, like, we just said the Sith are, he totally twists Anakin, and just screws with him completely. So, yeah, I mean...
Yeah, and you think about it, it's like even prior to that, he's like, oh, the Jedi made you a master, or a Jedi put you on the council but didn't make you a master? How do you feel about that? That kind of sucks, dude. And he's like, yeah, I hate that.
Exactly.
Well, very much. And then, like, an absolute is something where there's only two possibilities, and it's basically the Palpatine way, the Sith way, or no other way at all. And, life isn't black or white. So much of life is gray, and a lot of anxiety in the world is because people think there are only two ways, and I think that's what the Sith do. They want to try to confuse your view, and so you don't think clearly for yourself, but think in terms of what they want, like Curto said, with the selfish nature. And my co-host Corey has a very unique outlook on the Sith too. Corey, share with our friends what you think.
I don't know if it's so much unique, but like you said, Dan, the black and whiteness of the absoluteness. They see it's black or white, and that's how they make the decisions. It's how they go about their life, and it's life and death, and they're always looking to, experience life forever and ever and ever, and so on. So it's not kind of like that do or do not try type thing. They will accomplish their goal, regardless of whatever guards or is in their obstacle in their way. And going back to kind of the philosophy of them, we don't hear the word Sith, I think, until the prequels, and we don't see it in the original trilogy. So they always say the dark side. So it's always kind of this word that's kind of mixed up a little bit, I think, for maybe young Force users. I think it's something maybe they haven't heard of. So it's to bring it about and to make decisions. I think that's what every Force user has to do, is make decisions. And if you're Sith, you're dealing in absolutes where it's everything is black and white, so it's gonna be evil all the way. There's no remorse. Like we talked about Count Dooku, and he wasn't full Sith. I mean, in a sense, to where it was he could see the light side and kind of make decisions, and we see that in his characteristics in the movies and his decisions and his facial expressions. And I think it's very largely the point of where they're at as a Sith, and even say what we talked about that with the Jedi too, where they're at with their training and how far they've kind of come full circle, if you will. And so
Dooku was a Jedi, I guess, as was Anakin.
Yes. So it's.
I think they even get to a certain point during their training because I forget which movie, but one of the lines from Yoda, it's like following the dark side, following the Sith path. It's easier. It's easier to give in to your anger and your hatred. That's part of being a Jedi, is to overcome that and be stronger than that and follow this better path. Whereas being it's perhaps more powerful at times, but it's not true power.
Exactly. And that's a perfect...
It doesn't come from within.
And actually, the perfect comparisons to your statement, Curto, would be Anakin and Obi-Wan.
Yeah.
And because of his greed, because Anakin, wanted to save Padme and always just wanted to protect all the people that he loved, he utilizes his pain and anger to make the decision to follow the dark side and say, screw it. I'm done tolerating this. I'm gonna take action. Whereas Obi-Wan's been able to overcome whatever desires he may have, whether if it's falling in love or whether it's accepting the fact that death is a natural part of life.
And speaking of death, you bring a good point. The Sith are always looking to extend the afterlife and looking to ways to kind of work around it. So discuss this. Talk about the Sith and that their view of the afterlife and how they kind of put that into play.
Well, for me personally, I think they truly fear death because I think in their eyes they know there's nothing after that.
I like that.
And so whatever they do while they're alive, that's what's gonna, I guess, make their legacy go on forever. When they speak about the past Sith, they're going to be like, well, Darth Maul, was apprenticed to the most powerful being in the universe. He got chopped in half, but he was able to survive that with his own anger, and he built this whole underground battalion, if you will, and stuff like that. As opposed to Jedi, where Jedi, how do I explain it? I think. How do I put it?
It's all part of life. It's all part of it. Death is a part of it. That's why I think they're probably able to connect. As we saw with Qui-Gon and Yoda, for example, that's how they're able to still become part of the circle, if you will. Not to use a Lion King reference, but the whole circle of life. You know what I mean?
Yeah. They can still be a part of the living force, if you will.
Well, I think the other thing, kind of talking about that, them being scared to die. And you can totally see it. And obviously, who wouldn't be scared to die at this point with Dooku, where Dooku is about to get his head chopped off, and you can see the fear. He must have been doubly scared than the Jedi.
Doubly?
What, you know what I mean?
Clever pun.
Oh, yeah.
So, he must have been more scared than any Jedi would have been at that point. Because, like everyone, he mastered this power where when he died, he could still guide Luke, where Dooku just does not think anything's going to happen to him. So, the Sith are definitely more scared of death. But I think one thing I was thinking about not too long ago was, how the Sith are scared to die. And I know we know for a fact that, like, the Inquisitor is not a Sith. So does he kind of still deal with that kind of stuff? Does he still see the ways of the Sith, even though he's not a Sith himself? Or is he just merely, like a pawn for Vader? Or does he, believe in the Sith's teachings?
Well, that ties into something I was going to talk about later, but we may as well talk about it now. And I do know that on a recent Rebels Recon, someone sent a tweet to Pablo that he read about, why is the Inquisitor not a Sith? And by the way,
who was that?
Someone was that was me. That was me.
Nice.
I remember seeing that.
Yeah, that was pretty good. I was pretty happy about that. But he says, just because you have a red lightsaber, or because you have some Force abilities doesn't automatically make you a Sith, just like because you were Force sensitive doesn't automatically make you a Jedi Knight either. So the Sith have their rule of 2, and it's effective, but is it effective? Because they are not really hard and fast. I mean, we have our Ventresses, we have Grievous, we have the Inquisitor. So even though there's a rule of 2, is it really a rule of 2? And what makes them think that this is a good thing? We know that the expanded universe tells us that Darth Bane established the rule of 2 to try to do away with some of the anarchy that was going on. But has that really gone away? I'm interested to see what you all think.
I honestly don't think so. I don't think it's gone away for the simple fact that if you listen to I'm trying to think the first time we more or less heard it. Well, I guess if we're counting chronologically, the first time I heard it. Well, no, if we're talking about, the orders that we saw the movies in with the original trilogy, Vader was tempted to betray Palpatine if Luke joined him.
Right. But did he really mean that, or was that just part of his sales pitch?
It could be either way.
I think at that point he wasn't quite sure, but he was willing to explore either option.
Exactly. But Dooku also said the same thing to Obi-Wan, that he'd be willing to overthrow the Emperor if he has to.
You bet.
So
I feel like that's
I
in their meetings.
I think that's part. Yeah, exactly. That's part of it. You're always seeking power for yourself by any means necessary. Although I will say, in the case of Vader, even though he was very evil once he became the cyborg, put on the helmet and all that stuff, there's always been a part of him that was still Anakin, that was still Jedi, that was still kind of riding the fence. It's I want to do good, I want to do whatever, but I have this evil way. And there's a reason. I was just thinking about this earlier. It's not canon anymore, but one of my favorite scenes in Shadows of the Empire was Darth Vader in his meditation chamber using the power of the Force to heal his body.
Yes, I love that.
Which made him happy, which made him lose his connection to the Force.
That was brilliant.
Yeah, I absolutely. It always stuck with me all these years later. To be able to be a Sith, you have to be angry and fearful, which is what Yoda said in Episode 1. Right. And he sensed that immediately in Anakin, and that's his connection to the Force.
And really, that's a lot of work.
Way. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
To stay that mad for that long. I mean, I'm a Cubs fan. I have every reason to be that way.
Well, kind of about the rule of 2, kind of breaking that, I almost feel like when Ventress, came into the Clone Wars, and I think this is why Sidious wanted Dooku to eliminate her, was she was kind of becoming a Sith, if you think about it. I mean, every time she saw the Jedi, obviously she was always pissed off. So she was always, she always seemed angry to me every time you saw her. So she just kind of looked like she embodied.
Kind of had a messed up life, dude.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Pretty much so.
Right. Yeah. So I think at that point, just to go back to what you were saying about kind of the rule of 2 being broken, I think that, Sidious definitely noticed that. And that's why, of course, that's the reason why he asked Dooku to kill her, because number one, he thought that they were going to overthrow him, which kind of sucked for him. But I think the other thing was that she was becoming too much like a Sith and not just an assassin at this point.
And what also is actually kind of going into that, I think that Palpatine's greatest fear was that he probably thought, the more powerful Ventress got, the more maybe her and Dooku would try to overthrow me.
Interesting, too. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
No, that I've always felt like Palpatine was always worried about who was going to overthrow him. Would it be his apprentice? Would it be his apprentice's apprentice? You know what I mean?
I do. I've always been in the impression that Palpatine is aware that that's going to happen because that is the rule of 2. He still honors that, and he exacerbates that by putting things into place that he does. But I also think that because the Sith and the way they look at life and the afterlife, I don't think Palpatine ever believes that he's going to die. And we see some interesting revelations about the Sith endgame in Tarkin, which of course just came out recently. But I think that he doesn't quite believe that he is going to die. And I think it's amusing to him that someone is going to try to take his place, because then he's just going to either kill them or make them a new apprentice, which is basically what he did with Dooku.
Yeah, that's interesting you say that, Dan, because, the way I kind of look at it sometimes, too, it's like Vader was out to, take down all the rest of the Jedi after the Clone Wars and take them out. But was he taking them out, or was he trying to recruit them, in some respect? It seems like, if, he got his way, he didn't get his way in the end. He lost Padme. He lost the ones he loved. But, why wouldn't he go out and stalk the Jedi and find someone he could turn to the dark side and take them against the Emperor and then have that rule of two? So I think you're right in saying the Emperor is always looking over his shoulder a little bit. But then we see in Jedi, he tries to convert Luke, and Luke obviously trumps him. So, yeah, it works.
It's really funny because if you're thinking about it and you have the power,
is someone putting on a Darth Vader costume now?
That's great. Trying to ignore that, but okay.
Go ahead. Good microphone.
If you have the power and you're worried about your apprentice trying to overthrow you, why have an apprentice?
Exactly.
Right? Why not just, okay, I've got the power, I don't need anybody else. But I think part of rising to power, part of being able to keep power, is you dangle the power in front of someone and say, hey, guess what? If you come with me, I can make you a Sith too. That's why you have so many apprentices joining the dark side. That's why you see, Grievous is a tough example because he was a pawn all from the beginning.
Yep.
I mean, they just played him like a puppet on a string. Oh, that's like an Ultron reference. I got to figure out.
Oh, nice.
But sorry, I got that out of my head nowadays.
I understand.
It's definitely something that has been kind of hanging out there as like a carrot. It's like, come join me and I can help you save Padme. Oh, well, that didn't quite work out, did it? No. Sorry. Help me, Dooku, and I can bring order to the galaxy. Well, that kind of worked, but by the time he got there, I didn't need you anymore.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of like, if you have the power and you're on top of it, there is always somebody trying to knock you down.
There's always a bigger fish.
Yeah. That's right.
Absolutely.
That's right.
You would think that Grievous would start thinking about this as soon as Dooku died, and Sidious, kind of just was like, yeah, well, we'll get somebody else. He would start thinking, what's going on, but
like, why don't you pick me?
But he doesn't care. He's just the good little soldier. He doesn't care. He just wants to kill Jedi. He's not ambitious. I mean, and we see that by the way he treats most encounters. I mean, he runs off. The twitching mustache thing is happening all the time. And for the record, I absolutely love Grievous. I think he's an amazing character. The design alone is worth the price of admission. But that's maybe what separates him from the Sith as far as what his purpose is and what his end game is. And maybe we've seen this with the Inquisitor too. He seems, in 8 episodes, that he's very content to follow Vader, and Palpatine does not appear to have any ambition outside of that. So maybe that's a little bit of what the Sith really entails.
I agree.
I don't know if you guys seen, I'm not going to say it if you guys haven't seen this. Have you guys seen Gathering Forces yet?
We sure did. We just recorded a Rebels reactions about it.
I have not.
But it's nothing.
I haven't seen it. Corey hasn't shown me yet.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal. We're not a spoiler podcast anyway, so we'll dance around that. But what do you want to say?
It was just alluding to something that the Inquisitor had said.
Oh yeah.
If you know what I'm talking about.
I do. I very much do.
Yeah. Which I'm pretty sure is foreshadowing stuff to come.
Yeah.
I agree.
I think the thing with that is then you really see how blindly he's just going into it. And that was something, as I was watching the episode, I was thinking of, not giving spoilers away, but why is he doing what he's doing? Why is he so involved in trying to hunt down Kanan? And then obviously, they're Jedi, but
well, that's what he's tasked to do. So that, the big guy says it, so okay, I'm going to do it.
Right. But like outside of that, why does he take, orders so blindly? I definitely would love to see what he was like before he became this, Imperial pawn. That'd be really cool. I mean, maybe something happened to him where Jedi, maybe during the Clone Wars, an accident happened with the Jedi and he hates Jedi, or, who knows?
That could be cool.
I mean, just going off subject really quick
sure.
on Rebels, I thought I think one storyline that'd be kind of cool with Callus is if he is working for the Empire because there was a clone versus wherever he lived at the time, something went down, and he really hated the Republic at that point, and that would be somebody had that same storyline in the EU, and I cannot remember who it was, but it was a cool storyline of an Imperial who really hated the Clone Wars, and when he got his revenge against the Jedi, he loved it. I fully forget who that was though.
Not sure. I know what you're talking about, though. I recall it as well. It's very interesting, and you use the word pawn, and I think I'll reiterate too. I don't think that the Grievous probably is. The Inquisitor is much more self-aware than Grievous is, and much more powerful and capable. But let's be clear about why the Empire is successful. It's not because the Emperor can shoot lightning. It's because he can twist a situation. He was a politician before he ruled the galaxy or thought himself the ruler of the galaxy. He knows how to manipulate. He knows what buttons to push, and he's a master of propaganda. He's able to take this scarring thing where most people would shun you and use that as a badge of honor. This is why you should follow me instead of these Jedi Knights.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, everybody was a pawn underneath him, I think. If you think about it, everybody underneath him was a pawn.
Even us.
Yeah, even us.
It didn't matter who won the Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Who came out on top. Anyway.
Yeah.
That's right. He had horses in both races.
Yep.
That's right.
Moving on a little bit, we talked about the Jedi and their powers and kind of what they do at the last episode. And they have something unique that we don't see the Sith has is Force ghosts. We talk about the Sith powers and they've got lightning and things like that. Now, becoming a Sith ghost, is that something... I'm sorry, Sith ghost. A Force ghost. Is that something the Sith can do, or do they forfeit that somehow?
Assuming you're ignoring the comic books and video games, yes.
Exactly.
Well, we're not going to ignore. We won't ignore Son of Dathomir because that's canonical, which has its own problems, of course. But
right, yeah, that's a good question. I think the one thing about the Sith is because they're so filled with power and that's their only focus. I think the living Force kind of, I guess, almost at the end of their life, they kind of reject them. In a way, and that's kind of how I've always seen it. Like the good always outweigh the evil, so the good get more, I guess, perks, than what the Sith get, where they can come back and, I guess the best way to put it is to see old friends and stuff like that, where the Sith can't because
they're not friends.
Well, that's why I was saying before how Vader kind of rides the fence a bit, because obviously when he died in Episode 6, he comes back as a Sith ghost or Force ghost at the very end. So I don't think he was ever fully committed. At times perhaps, but I think there's always been that Anakin, I love Padme, I want to see her again type of, that good in him, as Luke would say. It's always been there. Whereas somebody like Maul, no, there was no good left in him.
Right, and I think that one thing with just to talk about kind of with George Lucas was a lot of the stuff is biblical references, and I think that's kind of what they're showing there was you got in biblical terms you got heaven and hell, and I think that's kind of something that they were going for here. I'm not 100% sure, but I know George has talked about stuff like that before.
Oh my God, you could totally see that in Episode 3 when he's on Mustafar.
You bet.
Yeah,
because he's in hell and he can see it, and they visually showed that. This is heaven up here in the sky, and that's why he's crying, because it's right there, and I cannot get to it because of the decisions that I've made.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
That's a great example.
Quite the visual, like wow. I remember that.
Star Wars is just replete with metaphor. It's just so beautifully layered, and that's why when people still, there are those out there detractors who will try to critique or criticize George Lucas. Criticism is fair. But as long as it's not personal, and sometimes it gets a little out of hand because whether you like him or not, the guy knows how to tell a story, and he's crafted this incredible mythology that brings people together, from all different parts of the state or the states or the world to talk about this incredible saga. So when we talk about the Sith, why are they not able to make Sith Force ghosts? Sure, we have the actual reasons why, but really, let's look at that a little bit more outside the box. What is it about them not being a Force ghost? So what does it mean to be a Force ghost? Because it does not appear to go hand in hand with enlightenment. Because even when Obi-Wan is a Force ghost, there's still a lot he doesn't know about the Force.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
Well, I
mean, like that, it could be a possibility that even Sith could eventually do it. You know, for me, I felt like what Dan was saying when Anakin kind of redeemed himself, so to speak. I think that's what allowed him to become a Force ghost. You know, even after all the sins he made and all that stuff, he was able to come back to the light right before his end. And that's what allowed him to become a Jedi. Now, in terms of Sith, it's like you said, there's so much mystery out there that, you know, it might be a possibility that a Sith in the future could tap into the Force in such a way where once they go to the afterlife or they die, they come back as a Force ghost. That would be pretty interesting to see what they could do with that.
See, I see a different perspective.
You know, you'd be screwed.
It's being a Sith ghost, and I keep saying Sith ghost, Force ghost. You guys talk about Anakin becoming a Force ghost at the end of Return of the Jedi, kind of an ultimate peak there, and I want to say it relates to sacrifice. We see Qui-Gon Jinn sacrifice himself to. Well, I'm sorry, he doesn't sacrifice himself, but he does, for the greater good, fight to the end. Same with Yoda. He puts all his will into the end, carrying out a sacrifice in a sense, as does Anakin the end. And it just seems to me that it's not necessarily something you were taught to do, I think, maybe. And we see a little bit of that in season 6 of Clone Wars with Yoda and Qui-Gon Jinn. Yes. And they don't really flesh out there either. I think it seems like Yoda is still maybe understanding the possibilities there. And I think that, maybe it's something the Sith, I don't know if it's almost like the Force wills it. It's almost the ultimate control. It's up to the Force to make up. Yeah, to choose you. Yeah, it's almost like if you went down in a blaze of glory, which I guess I don't know. It's just interesting to think about.
Maybe it's like what your frame of mind is at the time of your death.
Right.
So that's if you were evil your entire life, and then at the time of your death, you're like, oh my God, no, this is not the path. I need to do this redeeming act of valor or whatever. And that's how Vader was able to rejoin the light side, if you will. Whereas it's kind of hard to say because he didn't actually die. But let's say, and again, we're ignoring EU. So Palpatine, when he died, we never saw him come back as a ghost because he was 100%. No, I'm evil. I'm dark
that's
side.
Back to the absolutes. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's no gray area here, and Dooku, I would imagine is somewhere in between, perhaps. But as far as the movies go, we don't really think about those characters after they're dead because we've already moved on to the next round. You're Grievous, you're obviously Anakin takes over for Dooku, so we don't care about this anymore, really.
Right. I think it also too. It just boils down to hubris. The Jedi are willing to open up their minds to the possibility that there's something beyond them, something greater than them, and they embrace that. And as you will see in the newest episode of Rebels, getting in touch with nature. Your nature, as well as the nature and the harmony that is the world. Speaking of Lion King, they are, that's what that's about. The Sith do not believe in the afterlife because they don't believe in death. They don't believe that they can die, and it's very much considered weakness. Part of the reason that Maul is able to maintain his life essence in a crippling, destructive injury is that he refuses to show weakness, which is very non-human. The Sith deny their humanity. The Jedi do not. To deny your humanity is to deny your soul and deny who you are. That's why you can't be a Force ghost.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I much prefer thinking of the Sith. You kind of touched on this a little bit there. It's why it reminded me. The Sith as a belief, as a philosophy, not as an alien race from the other side of a black hole. I never dug that storyline. So I'm glad they got rid of that.
Yes, very much agree. That deserved to go down the Sith toilet.
Yeah, never cared for that storyline.
Go right.
So
back
I'm glad
into
that
the
you were
black hole.
thinking like this is the beliefs that we have, and I think that's part of why in that particular comic story, anyway, why Bane created the rule of two, because there was just too many people that were I'm a Sith Lord, no, I'm a Sith Lord, no, I'm a Sith. Oh my God, really? No, you're all dead. I'm gonna take this one as my apprentice, and that's all there's gonna be.
Well, and then kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier about the Clone Wars and Yoda kind of exploring all of that. I almost feel like I know we were supposed to get another arc like that down the line, so I'm almost wondering if we would have gotten more questions answered through that, because Yoda was definitely onto something, and obviously, this arc was not supposed to be the last arc of the Clone Wars, so we definitely see that there was more potential there, like whether or not we were going to see more Sith from the EU. Like, I mean, we know they already had character models ready for, EU characters like Revan and Bane, and obviously we got to see Bane in this episode, or the Clone Wars episode, completely different. But it does leave the question whether or not we were going to get questions like that answered throughout the rest of the season, because it seemed like it was starting to change into this very, getting questions answered more than thinking of what's going to happen, as we got throughout the Clone Wars, and now it's moving into, okay, here's what's going on. So I do wonder if we would have got that question answered.
That's it. Good.
Yeah, always. Not only is the Force always in motion in the future, but you can't help but wonder about what would have been in store. And I'm sure we're going to see a lot of these storylines eventually played out. Of course, my wish, as is I'm sure all of yours, is that we'll eventually see these back again in some way, shape, or form, whether it be on Netflix or who knows. We don't necessarily need to speculate on it, because it's what we all wish. We're all Star Wars fans. We love these characters. We love the saga. And guys, it's been wonderful talking to you about the Sith. And before we ask our 5 questions, we'd love to know sort of your final thoughts on the Sith, as well as what you have coming up on the WolfPack for all of your listeners, and for all of us, too.
Let Corey answer that last one.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, just to answer the first question about the Sith, I really, really like the conversation. It definitely, it's getting me thinking now. So
that's great.
That's good. I mean, Sith are awesome, even though they're evil, but it's still cool to see them in action. And even though the Inquisitor is not a Sith, it's cool to see that we're getting the essence of a Sith in Rebels, and we're still seeing, red versus blue lightsaber dueling going on. Right. So that's always cool to see. That's kind of my thoughts on the Sith, and I'm definitely looking forward to see if we get those Clone Wars stories answered. I always say to the crew or the cast that comes on from the Clone Wars, I always say, it's definitely a potential that you guys could go back in the studio and work on Clone Wars again, especially because there's a huge demand for it. And like Dave Filoni said, where there's a demand, there will definitely be a way. But as far as stuff coming up on the WolfPack, we do shows every Friday night at usually around 9:30 p.m. Eastern time on our YouTube channel, which is the WolfPack Podcast, of course. And we actually do also upload to iTunes, but that's kind of once in a blue moon type thing. We're working all that out to see if we can try to get those out weekly, but we definitely have some of our Rebels roundtables on there and whatnot. And as far as guests go, we're going to have a special episode with Freddie Prinze Jr. and Taylor Gray, who of course voices Kanan and Ezra, and we'll be chatting with them on December 12th. So that should be fun. And
that'll be great.
Yeah, we're planning something pretty huge as far as Clone Wars go, and I don't want to talk too much about that.
Yeah, we're not a spoiler podcast anyway, so you're safe.
Yeah, it's definitely a Clone Wars reunion, I can say.
Oh, wow. Cool.
Very fun. Very fun. Well, yeah, you guys have always been amazing with your guests and your conversation, so you certainly didn't disappoint on Coffee with Kenobi. It's been wonderful. Let's go ahead and jump into our 5 questions, guys, and I think the best way to do this is I'll just throw out, Corey and I will alternate asking the questions, then we'll just have Dan go, and then Nabbill, and then Corey, and we'll just kind of see what you're doing. Usually, guys, as you know from our show, we ask these questions to all of our guests in a similar vein to Inside the Actor Studio with James Lipton to see the commonality that Star Wars fans have with one another, and to see how very similar we are in this galaxy far, far away. So, Dan, we'll just start off with you. What is your favorite?
I feel so much pressure.
No pressure. What is your favorite Star Wars movie?
Oh, that's easy. The Empire Strikes Back.
Nabbill?
Revenge of the Sith.
And Corey?
Empire.
All right.
It's got to be The Empire Strikes Back.
I'm sorry.
Don't forget that article in there.
These aren't too hard. So, guys, your favorite Star Wars character?
Still me first?
Yes.
Yep.
Han Solo.
For me, I have two, but I guess I'll choose one. I'll go with Anakin.
My favorite is Ahsoka.
Oh, cool.
Yes.
I think you might be the first person to say that on our show.
Awesome. You have to throw.
That's cool. I know it says we're show number 27.
This was not a surprise to us, right?
No.
No, not at all. Well, no, not to me either. I mean, I've been a fan for a while, but even though it's a show 27, we've had about 70 episodes, so it's pretty cool to see that. All right, so guys, here's a tricky one. Favorite line of dialogue or film moment? Oh. And Dan, back to you.
All-time favorite. I often quote, "This is where the fun begins." I also say we're going to need a bigger boat, but that's a different friend.
Still cool though.
I'll stick with that one because Star Wars is a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Here we are, plus years, whatever, thinking about it still. So obviously something worked.
Exactly, and as you said so beautifully at the beginning, how it connects different generations of people too.
Yes, I truly believe that. I have kids that I'm talking. I probably should, but hey, they invited me on. I have kids that I took to see it when they were younger. I took them, and I got to see Star Wars through their eyes. And the special editions, I took my sons. My daughter wasn't so into it at the time, but to her, she loved Jar Jar and Anakin as a kid. And I didn't quite understand that because I was no longer a kid. That was an interesting revelation in my life.
Yes, I think a lot of people had a very similar revelations about that as well. Nabbill, what about you? Favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Can I actually answer both of them?
Of course.
Yeah.
Okay. So, favorite dialogue, after thinking, thank God Dan was talking a while. I think my favorite line.
Welcome.
I think my favorite line would have to be what Obi-Wan tells Anakin, that you were the chosen one. It was said that you would destroy the Sith, not join them. That whole little speech. It really got me thinking when I was watching the film, and I was about 13 years old when it happened, and it has a lot of meaning behind it. And favorite scene? Ooh. Now we're just talking about throughout the 6 films, right? Like favorite scene.
No, anything canonical.
Okay. Dang. It would have to be the fight between Anakin and Obi-Wan. If not, the fight between Darth Maul Savage and Darth Sidious in the Clone Wars.
That's cool.
I forgot the scene, but I already mentioned Vader.
Yeah, which is great. Corey, what about you? Favorite line of dialogue or film moment?
Favorite line? I think I may have to agree with Nabbill on his Revenge of the Sith moment, because that's so empowering when you watch that. And, obviously the prequels were filmed after the originals, but if you're watching it through 1 through 6, you see that moment and you just know right there Anakin is not going back. No. So I think that's a pretty powerful moment in, the entire 6 films. Although I really do like, of course, where Vader reveals that he's Luke's father, but me too. But I do like the Revenge of the Sith moment a lot. My favorite scene is in the Clone Wars, actually. No surprise there. It's where Ahsoka walks away from the temple, because I think what I loved about that was nobody expected that. That was like a Vader moment. You just did not expect something like that to happen. We recently chatted with Ashley Eckstein, and that's what we were telling her. It's everybody said she's gonna die, or she'll escape it somehow. Order 66. I've never ever heard a speculation of she's going to walk away from the Order.
Exactly.
So something like that was a really powerful moment, especially, Kevin Kiner's music was really cool, and that was just a really cool moment. But I think, just really quickly to add on to this whole Ahsoka thing, some dialogue I'm really enjoying is on Rebels right now with,
what could you be talking about?
With Hera and Fulcrum, I'm really liking that.
Really?
Yes, I quite like that a lot. So I've definitely been
interested
around with those clips and seeing if I can decipher. I think I have a pretty good idea. Rebels Report started this, so I have to continue the search now.
Hey, can I go back to the scene? I just thought of one while you guys were talking.
Sure.
So now that you guys talked, I was able to think about scenes. One of my favorite scenes when I was a kid, and this is why it stuck with me, it was on the second Death Star where Vader and Luke are going at it, and Vader's searching the feelings for Luke, and he says, "Oh, you have a sister." Oh, and then and Luke just loses it.
Oh, yeah.
And I mean, like the music, the sound, the action, I mean, I still get chills to this day.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So that was when Luke was like sort of giving into the dark side a little bit because I'm angry at you, but he didn't go all the way. Then he faced that moment and said, "No, I'm not going to become you."
It's definitely monumental. Yeah, good stuff.
Yeah.
Next question. If you collect, what is your favorite collectible that you own? And we'll start with Corey on this one.
Of course. Yeah. So my favorite.
I love how you're like looking around the room.
Oh yeah, if you've ever watched their show, he's got quite a cool display.
I have a Pong Krell figure that was custom made from an eBay seller. He's a really cool guy, and he makes a ton of customs. I think I really like the Pong Krell one because he sculpted it, and it looks, first of all, it just looks just like Pong Krell, which is crazy to sculpt something like that. And it is using parts from a Dexter Jettster figure, but it really looks like Pong Krell with, the added arms and the big feet and just everything he did with it. That's probably my second favorite. I just totally switched my mind. My first favorite is actually something that Nabbill made for me. He made me a custom Obi-Wan Kenobi in Mandalorian armor figure from the Clone Wars, and that figure is beautifully painted, and it looks really cool, so that's probably my number one favorite.
That's cool. Dan, what about you?
I am a collector, obviously. That's
just look at your picture right there.
I've been asked this question before. It is very, very difficult to answer.
If it makes you feel better, we had to ask this to Steve Sansweet. So you're in good company.
It's funny you mention him because I've decided while listening to Corey that I'm going to pick a very interesting collectible, which is the Ultimate Action Figure Collection by Steve Sansweet, co-written by me and photographed by me, that I had a big part of, which is definitely a crowning achievement in my collection life.
Oh, heck yeah.
It sounds weird, but I had so much fun working on that book, putting that together, and rather than pick just one action figure that is my favorite, I mean, there's the culmination of all my years of collecting. In fact, the cover of that book is made up of figures from my collection, which is always going to be cool for me.
Wow. I was just showing that picture to my oldest son. I was just showing that book to my oldest son, and I didn't even think about that. So, yeah, how cool. I can't wait to tell him that we were just chatting.
Yeah, the collage of action figures on the wraparound cover are ones that I own. They're
great.
Literally the actual, including the archer with the on the front, because that's the one that's sitting right over there. Yep, right in that bin.
That's so cool. Now, Bill, what about you?
You made it too hard on me.
We gave you plenty of time.
Yeah, really.
That's true too.
You can still keep them all, whatever your favorite is. You can still keep them all.
Okay, cool. I would have to say it would have to be my Sideshow Collectibles San Diego Comic-Con exclusive Darth Vader or Anakin Skywalker with the Sith eyes.
Oh, yeah.
That was something I've always wanted since they released it. And, of course, I was still a teenager with no job when it came out, so I was never able to obtain it. Plus, I never went to San Diego Comic-Con. So, and I was fortunate enough and blessed to be able to purchase it for a steal at Celebration 6. And, that was my first celebration I ever went to. So I think that's why that particular figure means so much to me, because I had so much fun at Celebration. It was my first celebration, and then I got it for a really cheap deal. So I think that would have to be my favorite figure in my entire collection.
That's very cool. That's awesome, actually. So, guys, last question. We saved the best for last. What particular messages or themes about the Star Wars saga resonate or speak to you?
Ooh.
And Corey, we'll just we'll just go in our original order. We'll go Dan, Nabbill, and then Corey.
Go first. I've never been a huge Jedi fan. So the whole Jedi Sith thing, while I always liked it, it was not my favorite element of Star Wars. I was always a big fan of Han Solo, Boba Fett, the underworld elements. Like I said, Han Solo was my favorite character, and it wasn't so much that he was like the best shot. It wasn't so much that he had the best friends or whatever, but is his attitude and his, I can do this. I can totally, take on whatever challenges are thrown at me. Like, he just never gave up. And I guess you could say that applies to kind of as well. It's like, don't give up. Always follow, it sounds like philosophical, but, follow whatever your plan is. And good things will happen or something like that, but like I say, Han was my favorite character. He saw his plan through, got the girl, I love you, I know, that whole thing. And he was really cocky about it throughout the entire thing. I always liked.
Great. That's awesome. I and very much like Indiana Jones too.
Indeed. He's making his up as he goes. Another line I use a lot.
Nabbill, what about you? Favorite line? I'm sorry, particular message or theme about Star Wars? Woo!
What was it again?
Yeah, what particular messages or themes about Star Wars resonate or speak to you?
There's a whole bunch of messages. I would have to say, okay, so the main reason I like Anakin the most is because of the fact that he's really relatable, right? And a lot of issues that he went through, I was going through at the time when Revenge of the Sith came out. Teenagehood, you got to learn how to accept losing people in your lives in terms of friends, right? You start, as you're growing, you start realizing who your real friends are and who aren't. You get backstabbed in the back, and sometimes you feel like you can't let it go at that age. You feel like you've been betrayed, and you kind of want to, get back at them and stuff like that. And I think I really like that message where, like I said, the balance between Anakin and Obi-Wan, where Anakin, will do anything to make sure he gets what he wants, and Obi-Wan is selfless, so to speak. So I think the message that speaks to me the most is that friendship is important, and I guess enjoy the moment. Enjoy the good times that you have, and just like Dan said, basically, whatever plan you have, just stick with it to the end, and good things will come from it.
Do or do not.
That's
Amen.
right. That's right. Oh, very well said.
I thought of that while you were talking. I was like, oh, well, great.
Well, you're right on the money. Okay, and speaking of that, Corey, you're up, my friend. You're the cleanup hitter for this, so
cool.
Go right ahead.
My favorite thing, I think, kind of similar to what Nabbill was saying, was the whole fact that Star Wars really shows up. Some of the look at me, I'm gonna make another Clone Wars reference. Where Ahsoka, here we go. Where Ahsoka walks away from the temple, and you really see the fact that she's standing up to what she believes in. Like if you're messing with her, I mean, they framed her for murder, and you see her leaving from that. It's you stand up for what you think. She could have just done what a lot of people would have done and just stayed with that because she gets the perks of it, which means she gets to be a Jedi Knight. But in this case, she stood up for what she believes in that. I think that's another thing that they were going with another Clone Wars character, of course, Captain Rex. He was going to stand up for what he believed, and I believe he was going to leave the army, and that's something we see throughout the movies as well. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, an important message to a lot of kids these days. You know, to bring to Star Wars, which I think is something that makes Star Wars as great as it is.
Well, yeah, it connects people together from, as we said, all walks of life and generations, and it's awesome. And so Star Wars brings Coffee with Kenobi and the WolfPack Podcast together. And gentlemen, it was such a pleasure to pick your brains and to talk about this stuff. But we always want to make this feel like we're all sitting around having a cup of coffee and just talking about what we love. And you guys very much helped us create that atmosphere. So we thank you so much for being on Coffee with Kenobi.
Well, thank you guys for having us. And
thank you.
Definitely sit down with you guys again on our show.
Oh, we would be absolutely honored. And before we let you go, where can everyone get in touch with all of you, or if they want to ask a question or just say hello?
Okay, well, you can find us on Facebook. We have a Facebook page. You can just search the WolfPack Podcast. We're also on Twitter under the WolfPack CCMM. It's a very weird Twitter tag, but the reason for that was our first name before we transferred to the WolfPack Podcast. For some reason, we called it that for the first 2 months, then we changed it back. So that's why it's like that. You can also find us, of course, on YouTube, where you're going to see all of our shows. You can find us on Instagram at the WolfPack Podcast, and you can also find us on iTunes at the WolfPack Star Wars Podcast. And
and our main website.
And our main website, www.thewolfpackpodcast.com. If anybody wants to say hello, feel free to send us an email or anything. We have our email on our website.
And we will put links to all of that in our show notes for sure. Guys, thanks again so much for being on Coffee with Kenobi.
Thanks, guys.
We look forward to chatting with you again in the future.
Hey, thank you, guys.
More to add, do you?
Well, we did get a couple of emails on our topic for the Sith, and I wanted to throw them in there. Mike Audette, who we just heard from recently earlier in our show on the Rhode Island Comic-Con thing, which was awesome. He sent us a quick thing about the Sith, and he writes, "Hey guys, I have some ideas what make the Sith so Sithy. I think this is a credit to the writers and storytelling aspects of the saga, but they are able to take what are considered noble and acceptable qualities in real life and make them seem very real. Things like love, passion, and the thirst for always wanting more are taken to the nth degree by the Sith, especially in the forging of Anakin to become Darth Vader. Using these qualities combined with natural evil qualities like hate and anger make for one of the greatest cocktails in character history. Being a death metal, heavy metal fan myself, I love this type of imagery and characteristics, and it is what makes the Sith that much more interesting to me on an intellectual level. Their motivations can be clouded by outsiders, but deep down they always know what the end game is. Let me know what you think about this too. As always, may the Force be with you." Well, thank you, Mike. Right off the bat, when I look at this, Corey, clearly he's right. Love and passion, always wanting more. The Sith are very, very greedy and very narcissistic. Yes. You know, and it's very much about, he says their motivations can be clouded by outsiders. I see what he's saying there. I see more that they cloud everybody else. I mean, I suppose that's the easy push the button answer. But they do always have a goal, and they do not deviate from that goal, which I'm not going to say it's admirable because they're murderers, but it's admirable to have a focus. And obviously Mike doesn't support that notion of it either. He's a great guy. He's a good friend. But it's understandable that people find them intriguing. I think the Sith are really intriguing. I mean, Darth Vader's probably my favorite character in Star Wars. He's obviously a Sith. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, you kind of said that, you know, they have a goal in mind, and Mike said it as well. I think also the Jedi have a goal in mind. I think they both go about it two different routes, and whether it's, you know, destroying stuff or, you know, working towards, you know, the good, or, you know, communication, or, you know, the Jedi way, as far as getting to that goal, maybe not necessarily it's such a bad goal, you know, in that respect. I mean, we talked about the Emperor earlier as far as our discussion, and, you know, he was trying to bring some kind of a balance of some type as far as the Jedi Council. I think we talked about that as well. So was that so bad in a relative sense? Maybe not. I mean, it's for everybody to kind of ruminate on and talk about and get their perspective on and opinion about. And, Mike put up some good stuff. I like his comparison to the death metal and heavy metal stuff. It's just like I compare it to Darth Maul. I mean, he seems like a heavy metal kind of guy, the horns on his head. I'm just waiting for the leather jacket and, the rock fist going up and, head banging. So I can see it. Our topic for show number 28 is your reactions to the Force Awakens teaser trailer. What did you think? What stood out to you? What overall themes have you already noticed? Send your thoughts, comments, or questions in an email or MP3. I'll read them on our next show.
I like the sound of that.
Echo 3 to Echo 7. Ano, buddy, do you read me?
I saw part of the message.
I seem to have found it.
First email comes from Johnny. He says, "Hey guys, I noticed you didn't mention Ezra's use of psychometry. Amazing new Jedi powers alone should raise the episode grade, and that tells us a lot about Ezra. When Ezra goes back to his tower outpost after saying he isn't helping with this mission, he gets the key for his family's home, and when he rubs it, it starts hearing his parents' voice. Then in his family's home, he touches the recording disc and again hears voices. He's so distracted he doesn't hear Sabine come down the ladder. Especially, I thought those were great scenes. You can tell it's not just memory, because the first time it happens, Ezra looks around after he hears his mom's voice, as if he expects her to be there." And that's from Johnny. Johnny, thanks so much for listening to Rebels Reactions. We really enjoy the new Rebels cartoon series. I, for one, really enjoyed it so much. But you bring up some great points here. Now, you're talking.
And we didn't even talk about this in Rebels Reactions.
This is a great point.
And I do want to point out that Johnny didn't provide his last name, and we had some really good conversations, and I forgot to ask him his last name. So, Johnny, send us another email, and we'll be sure to include your last name in the future if you want us to share that, of course.
Mm-hmm. And like you said, he brings up some good points here that we hadn't talked about, and certainly it's interesting because I always had thought that it was kind of his memory triggering those thoughts. And
so, do you think he actually heard? Because I can't believe we didn't talk about this, because it's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he heard it in his head and it was just played, auditorially for the audience, for effect, or do you think like it was actually reverberating in the room when he was there?
Yeah, it's hard to tell. It is. I think it's a mixture of things. I mean, I think it's his latent force powers are bubbling to the surface a little bit.
Yeah.
And he's still discovering himself in that way. So, for him to interact with those memories and those places and those feelings, I mean, he hadn't been there for a long time, so it felt like, you walk in any old place, you haven't been there a long time, you get these chills, if you will, of good memories, bad memories, whatever it may be, and maybe it was not so good for him, and for him to maybe be a little scared, a little jumpy, maybe, and it's kind of that feeling that, are there ghosts, about? Is there something wrong going on here? Is there mystery going on here?
You sound like you watch a lot of scary movies.
Well, I'm a scary guy, I guess.
I wouldn't say that. What I will say though is Johnny refers to this as a recording disc,
mm-hmm.
and maybe it's mentioned somewhere what this object is.
Well, they show it in the latest episode.
Yeah, they show it, and I thought it just sort of helped him connect with like his memories. But if it is true psychometry, then there's something psychic or spiritual going on, and we don't know what has happened to his parents, if they are alive or if they are no longer around, because they are dead or something, or what have you. Well, I guess it had to be that. Where else would they be if they weren't alive? And what am I talking about?
I don't know.
Yeah,
Dan, I'm going to play the dummy here. Could you give me a definition of
psychometry?
Psychometry, please.
Yeah, psychometry. I mean, basically, it's like this psychic belief that you can have an object from someone and you can connect to them spiritually or psychically or what have you. So when I saw that scene, I didn't bat an eye. I assumed it was some sort of a force thing. It was triggering memories for him, like you said. I don't think he was directly communicating with them, but I think he was sort of having just like these powerful force connections with it. But I'm sort of stumped. I mean, this is a cool question.
It harkens back for me, when Obi-Wan gives Luke, his father's lightsaber. It's kind of that same idea of, this is something of the old that.
Yeah, but it's not like he hears the voice. Whenever we see somebody in Star Wars communicating with someone from a long distance, it's because their Force presence is there. And I don't necessarily think that his parents' Force presence were there, but I think he was sort of hearing them sort of call. It's almost like when Qui-Gon says, Anakin, and Anakin doesn't respond because he's killing the Tuskens.
Oh, right.
Attack the clones. Does he actually hear that, or is it just sort of there and he tunes it out? Or I don't know. I really hope that people listening will weigh in with their thoughts, because I think this is interesting.
Thanks, Johnny.
Our next email comes from featured blogger Melinda Wolf, and she writes, first of all, I'm over the top happy that Mason prefers Luke, which is, of course, a reference to me talking about Mason selecting that Luke Skywalker Hot Wheels car. She says, once a Luke fan, always a Luke fan. I am not sure I've laughed so hard during an interview on one of your podcasts as I did in the recent one with James. He was so funny. When you were all talking about more serious subjects like the Jedi, the banter between the three of you, usually around a subject other than Star Wars, tickled my funny bone. Just so you know, all this was happening while I was painting. I can't say that this was a wise thing, laughing so hard to be doing while I was engaged in some close edge work on the wall, but it certainly was fun to have the distraction. I didn't agree with everything you fellas said about the Jedi, but I enjoyed listening to your opinions very much. I love hearing what others have to say on a subject, even when my line of thinking veers in a different direction. Your discussion was engaging, enlightening, and entertaining. Thank you. I don't know if this email is arriving under the wire or when you two are set to tape show number 27. If it is too late to be included, no worries. I'll still give you my thoughts on the Sith if you don't mind. Here goes. And while normally, of course, we would add this in our Sith discussion, it's still prevalent, and we're happy to share Melinda's thoughts with all of you here. And she writes, oddly, I don't have a great deal to say about the Sith. Of course, they make a good counter to the Jedi. While I would like otherwise, there is evil in the world galaxy, just as there is good. One's definition of good makes it possible to identify evil. To me, the Sith personify evil. They are selfish, egotistical, uncaring, and unsympathetic beings. They may be driven by passion, but let me make this perfectly clear. They are driven by passion that has gone amok. To put it in biblical terms, Christ was driven by passion, yet his passion was driven by the desire to help mankind. His was an altruistic passion. Those who saw to it that he was removed were driven by a passion too. Only theirs was a self-serving passion based on fear of what they thought they'd lose to this new king. See the difference? As far as the rule of two is concerned, thank goodness there usually are just two of these evil-minded individuals with whom to deal. Yes, they're incredibly strong in the Force, but certainly not undefeatable. Darth Maul was killed. I don't care what canon says. Count Dooku was killed. Darth Vader was killed, and so is the Emperor. Cut off the head of a serpent, and the body will fall limp. Please, Dan, don't cringe when I say this, but in the EU, the rule of two falls by the wayside. The Sith build themselves back up into an army, creating a more formidable force, I might add, and even then, they are defeated. The post-Return of the Jedi Sith believe it is fine to have families, but parents see no problems with treating their children harshly and cruelly. They are quick to sacrifice a child if it serves their own intentions or ambitions. From a literary point of view, there has to be some conflict that enters into the equation to move the story along. Good versus evil is a tried and true theme, and it works extremely well in the Star Wars saga. The Sith fit the bill to counter the more altruistic Jedi. It's a simple, well-worked example to impress what can happen to a being if one travels down that dark path. I will leave it at that. In closing, I'd just like to add that it really is not difficult to be good to help others. Good, gracious, a smile, a kind word can go a long way towards brightening another's day. I know there is evil in the world. Psychologists and sociologists can explain what drives people to do what they do, and yet, sometimes I just don't get it. It costs nothing to be kind. I'd rather leave the world a little better, a little kinder, a little gentler if I had the words, if I had the choice. Wouldn't you? Thanks for letting me add my 2 cents. Sorry it ran over 300 words, not that I counted them, just can't tell. I hope both of you have a blessed, happy Thanksgiving. All my best, Melinda. Well, Melinda, thank you again for your insights, your kindness, and just being you. All of our listeners, Corey, I'm sure you agree, they're just great individual, real people, and we love that. That's what Star Wars fandom is. It's just a bunch of people who just love this saga so much, and Melinda brings up some fun things to talk about.
Exactly. It seems to be like, she kind of started off saying she doesn't have much to say, but she really does have a lot to say. I mean, as far as the Sith go, because she made a good point where, it goes good and evil go hand in hand, and certainly we wouldn't have the saga if we didn't have that. And so it evens itself out, whether you like it or not, as far as which side you like better, the Sith, the Jedi. And everybody likes the Sith for certain reasons, and they're obviously a formidable foe for the Jedi. And I think you can take it however you represent it in your fandom, I think, too, and she certainly has in her own way. And to go further into that, it's taking the different paths. So it even strikes us in our daily life too, Dan. I mean, it's we make decisions in our lives. We go a good route or a bad route, and sometimes it's hard to get to those decisions and those goals, and sometimes it's difficult to make those choices. I think that's something that Sith have to deal with too, those choices and doing that. So certainly a great email, and we appreciate it.
And thanks for your comments on James. James was so much fun. He was so entertaining, and what we notice over and over again, and hopefully people notice this when they're listening too. Everyone is just happy to be a Star Wars fan and to talk to other fans about it. And we're all just real people. I mean, I keep saying this and like a babbling goofball, and that's fine. But it's just really, really, it's fun. It's so fun. I can't wait. One of the things I'm most excited about for Celebration is talking to all of you. So I cannot wait for that. All right, our next email is from Mark Audette. A recent acquaintance of mine has become a fast friend, a really, really intelligent guy. And I'm going to paraphrase some of what he has written to us with his permission. And he said, "Hi, Dan. Just got done listening to Coffee with Kenobi 26 in the wee hours of the morning. Good show. I wanted to share a few thoughts on the Jedi, the Force, and perhaps a few related tidbits. What I would call the core of the Jedi philosophy is pure Taoism. On top of that, we have a sprinkling of Buddhism for flavor. But the core, in so many ways, is straight out of Taoist belief and practice. The Force is Tao. I run into references that it was called the Way in ancient periods in the Star Wars universe, and that's a literal translation of the word Tao. The idea of balance, the division of the undividable into two polarities, the notion that the Force guides one's actions. There's even references of the wu-wei or acting without acting, although I'd be harder pressed than my mental state allows this morning to weave together how that is all reflected. And I'm sure I butchered the term wu-wei, so I apologize if I did. The battle practices, meditations, etc. also sprang out of Taoism. From the sword styles of the Taoist schools on Mount Wudang to the conditioning of Tai Chi to the internal energy channeling, allowing for kind of crazy levels of athletic performance, straight out of Taoist practice. Even Taoist alchemy has echoes in some of the life manipulation elements I've stumbled over. Much of the compassion elements and self-denial elements are the flavor added from Buddhism, which starts to become a problem in terms of cohesive philosophy, at least the self-denial aspect. I think that's probably more of an issue of the bias produced from our limited windows to view the Jedi than the flaws in their philosophy themselves. And he has a lot of he goes on to explain this in amazing detail. Like I said, Mark is a very intelligent man, so it's a pleasure to hear from him and have him contribute to the show. But honestly, a lot of time when we talk about the Jedi and the Force, the majority of our analysis, Corey, is from a Christian perspective because we are both Christian, and that's what we know. But that doesn't mean there aren't other elements of this, of other religions and other philosophies and ways of life. But just basically hearing that, what do you think?
Yeah, you made a good point about a mixture of philosophies and religions and things. I know that George Lucas pulled a lot of that from his researching and such. So it's not surprising to me that some of those things are picked up as far as some of the individual meanings and things. And it seems like a lot of religions and things are prevalent in each other's lives, individual lives, as they go to create something new. And you can't not just hold that back and display that in the things you do. I think it comes off just as a daily function, I think, as far as who that individual is. And certainly, in the saga, in the Star Wars saga itself, it relates a lot to that. Some of the things he said, the Buddhism and things like that, the power of inner meditation, even, former background or whatever religious beliefs you have, it's something that's, something that you can't step away from, even if you are atheist. You obviously have internal thought and internal debate. I think that's something that's within every human being, I think. So he's dead on with all his accounts here as far as relating that to those issues and those different dynamics.
Yeah, and anyone who has insights into the different aspects of Jedi and the Force and how they apply to other areas, Catholic and Christian and anywhere, share them with us because we'd love to hear it and kind of add to our knowledge too. I mean, collectively we're learning together, and which is, again, the wonderful power discussion. So thanks again, Mark.
Chewie, get us out of here!
If you would like to respond to our question of the show, have a comment, or just want to say hello, send us an email or MP3 at feedback@coffeewithkenobi.com. Or if you have a specific question or comment for either of us individually, email us at danz@coffeewithkenobi.com or coryc@coffeewithkenobi.com, or visit us at coffeewithkenobi.com and click on the Contact Us section, or comment on one of the stories featured on the site. If you enjoy the show, please write a review in iTunes. You can also like the show on Facebook at facebook.com/coffeewithkenobi, as well as keep up to date on our Twitter feed at twitter.com/coffeewithkenobi. You can also find us on Tumblr at coffeewithkenobi.tumblr.com. If you enjoy the jazz music, download the album Eye to Eye by Steve Torok on iTunes.
Give the evacuation code signal.
That's it for show number 27 of Coffee with Kenobi. Big thank you to the WolfPack for sharing a cup of coffee with us discussing the Sith. Be sure to check out the WolfPack Podcast on iTunes, YouTube, and Twitter.
Thanks to Rob at the Bearded Trio, to Randy and Luke from Legends Library, and to everyone who contributed to this show, and to all of you out there who listen to and email Coffee with Kenobi each and every week.
Don't forget to send us your comments and opinions on the teaser for The Force Awakens.
This is the podcast you're looking for.
This podcast is not endorsed by the Walt Disney Company or Lucasfilm Limited. It is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com. Star Wars, all names, sounds, and any other Star Wars-related items are registered trademarks and or copyrights of Disney and their respective trademark and copyright holders. All original content of this podcast is the intellectual property of Coffee with Kenobi unless otherwise indicated.
There's no one here. Move along.